find and fulfill your destiny.
Destiny can be a really hard topic. It seems like many don't like it, either because they don't enjoy what it's become, or because they just don't like the way the game is built. I mean, say what you will, but the over-monetization, the propensity to cut corners in DLC, and the toxic PvP atmosphere could sap the fun out of any game. That being the case, making an argument towards Destiny's good points can be polarizing to say the least. Regardless, going forward, I hope you guys will enjoy as we navigate the perils of saying just how Destiny can, sometimes, be amazing. Now, it's honesty time. I haven't watched very many videos containing opinions on Destiny's music. In fact, honesty times 2, I don't go around watching reviews of music in general. To put it simply, I like what I like, even if the reasons are contrived and hyper-specific. I would assume that most people probably think the soundtrack is pretty decent, with a few standouts. In my own opinion, the soundtrack deserves higher praise than that though. It has just enough variety to not feel overly redundant, which is good for a game whose revenue is largely based on the product's longevity. There are melancholic, withdrawn, slow tunes.
This is not your fault. This is on the head of Uldren Sov.
Some inspirational pre-battle music. There are upbeat, optimistic, energizing rally songs.
Shaped by the fires of each new battle, we are forged and sharpened into what we must become for the fight ahead.
Perhaps even some intimidating, powerful bops. All of these songs serve varying purposes, and together they comprise just enough variance to constitute a full-bodied soundtrack. Regardless of the situation, there's at least one song for it, and most likely that song is good, if not outright great. Not every game can claim to have such a consistent soundtrack, and while it may get redundant after playing the game for hundreds upon thousands of hours, that doesn't take away from the fact that at the very least, the songs are never bad, even if they don't always steal the show. In a game as packed with action, tension, and eye-popping scenery as Destiny, sometimes that's all you need. Now, consider the cinematic where Cayde 6 is holding himself off against the various waves of the Scorned in the beginning of the Forsaken DLC. He's badly beaten, without his ghost to protect or revive him, and he's facing down a legion of some of the toughest guys the Prison of Elders could get a hold of. Cayde 6 has been shown up to this point to have a rather indomitable sense of self. No matter the situation, he remains unfettered in his ability to crack a one-liner, say something funny, or make a comment that makes light of the situation. No matter what's happening, Cayde is a relative constant, reliably supporting you, or being supported, even if his mannerisms belie that fact. So, what does this generational icon of constant, seemingly accidental success do?
I'm coming home, Ace.
He cracks a one-liner, and with no hint of restraint, readies his gun for the enemies ahead. The music swells a little bit, as it becomes a quick, last-stand motif. It's all at once determined, a little triumphant, even slightly melancholic and intimidating before it's cut off into an impressive and heavy silence, as the enemy wallops Cayde so hard, he flies through a wall, incapable of even standing up. On its own, this scene would be pretty great. I mean, just before this part, Cayde had an excellent fight cinematic, which culminated into this feeling of hopeless amazement at how long he's lasted. But then, the next scene comes on. Uldren Sov is chastising an injured Cayde as a cold, slow, quiet song drifts into the background. It's a frigid, sadistic tune, and it largely shows Uldren Sov's nature as a sly, hateful deceiver who takes retribution almost as fervently as he chases his now-dead queen. This moment, despite its gravity, despite the frantic build-up, is calm and sad, even as it's powerful. And that is heavily punctuated by the music and its ability to subtly give feelings without taking up the spotlight. This sequence of cutscenes, from the fight to Cayde's stand to Sov's derision, is Destiny at its best. In my humble opinion, this goes especially so for the way the music's executed. It's at times loud and overpowering, then determined and intimidating, all the way down to quiet and sadistic. Each song not only encapsulates the scene it was a part of, it also enhances them, serving them by either being a large set piece or background noise as needed. Games, in general, should have music that's well written and fits the overall theme of the game, while also being able to describe a specific situation. Destiny has all three aspects of musical execution in spades, and that's why, in a sense, its music can be amazing. Games are notorious for their ability to place people in positions of power. It's a very central aspect to many video game franchises, and Destiny is no different. Oftentimes, you'll be playing only to mercilessly slaughter cataclysmic numbers of enemies. I mean, just crazy numbers. Like, really, it's obscene. Guardians could give Doomguy a run for his money, and one of his most famous quotes is,
Up.
It makes sense why, too. From early on in the game, your player character has just an absurd arsenal. Each of the roles, Titan, Warlock, and Hunter, have an Arc, Solar, Void, and Darkness class. The Light classes have 3 subclasses each, and the Darkness subclass is so highly customizable, it's akin to having multiple. That's, at the very least, 10 unique subclasses for every role, each with its very own specialties, advantages, and disadvantages. Without even factoring in your weapons, you already have an insane variety of skills and methods to deliver the killing blow to that tiny little dreg unfortunate enough to be in your path. Then, you take a gander at the list of guns to see that you haven't even gotten started counting all the ways to eliminate an enemy. Sidearms, submachine guns, assault rifles, snipers, rockets, the list goes on and on and on. Yes, it's true, at the endgame, not every gun is good, even in the better rarities like legendary or exotic. But even so, from a pure numbers perspective, Bungie hit it out of the park. You could riddle your enemies with holes or burn wounds in a miasma of ways, and that's beautiful to a gamer's eyes. Even if you whittle down the classes, builds, and guns to be the best of the best, you could still mow your way through waves of enemies. Do you want to endlessly haul grenades at an enemy until they burn to a crisp? What about killing a Fallen to drop an item that, if shot, nukes everything in an 8-mile radius? Think rampaging around with multiple grenade launchers, decimating groups and bosses alike sounds fun? Maybe you're more of a endlessly streaming waves of bullets person, or a connoisseur of the shotgun melee DPS variety? It's even possible that you want to be able to use nothing but laser beams and sniper rifles, and even then, Destiny has got you covered. And that's one of the prime strengths of Destiny and its RPG layout. Not only do you get to feel insanely powerful, especially when you have good gear and an actual build, but you also get to feel that strength through a cascade of different routes. That's not to imply that, by any means, Bungie developed many balanced builds. No. No way it would be that simple. See, many of the builds I just described were at one point viable, at least in PvE. You could fully function in most endgame content within the context of using those builds. The thing with Destiny is that, in this case, fully functional means highly lethal. These builds take your Guardian from a killing machine to the greatest master of the game of devastation the Sol system has ever seen. They're fun to play, too. Weirdly enough, it's strangely satisfying to fire your gun as you melee enemies into oblivion, or freeze an entire wave of thralls before you shatter them into dust. You don't just get to feel strong in Destiny. At the top end, you get to feel like a walking god, and I'd imagine you could see how that may indeed make you feel pretty amazing. Being an unstoppable grenade-lobbing monster is fun on its own, sure, but the novelty can wear away rather quickly, especially if you have access to many of those abilities from moment one. This is especially true in Destiny, where many of the weapons can feel very functionally similar. Call it the flaw of weapon classes, but a 750 RPM auto rifle always kinda feels like a 750 RPM auto rifle, even if some are better than others. Destiny is lucky though, in that it gets to sidestep some of these problems around these ideas via one of its most prevalent traits: the grind. I'm sure it's been said to death, but tell me if this sequence rings a bell. Go out, do a few quests, get a reward. Go out, do another few similar quests, get another reward. Go out again, do a slightly different quest, get another reward. Rinse and repeat. Switch out the word quests with strikes, crucible, gambit, and raids, and you have literally the entirety of Destiny's play cycle. Every week, you get on to raise your power level a little bit more. you go to the Strike playlist, where there are 3 to 4 separate activities that all equate to play a PvE mission with fodder, a little bit of story, and a boss at the end, all of which have separately earnable rewards. Then, you go to Gambit, a PvP and PvE activity that you play until you complete all your bounties for a piece of gear, and then you never touch it for the rest of the week. Then, you play Crucible, which, though it is PvP, does have some variety in the way that each activity plays, except, ironically, unlike Strikes, you can only earn 2 pieces of gear, despite having the most functional differences within its own playlist. I'm sure it comes across as though I have some angst towards Destiny's content cycle, and that's because, like much of the community, sometimes I do. However, this problem of repetition comes across in many RPG games, especially of the MMO variety, which I feel Destiny emulates the hardest. In many MMOs, like Black Desert or Genshin Impact or Path of Exiles, by the time you've reached the endgame, you've exhausted most of your options for getting stronger. Generally, the games devolve into repeatedly doing the same bunches of activities over and over again for marginal increases in your power level. In many ways, the repetitive nature of Destiny's content may seem like its weakest point, and indeed, much like its contemporaries, the requirement of putting ways to continuously earn better items is probably the largest flaw in the game. Ironically though, this is a necessary evil. Destiny, as a franchise, is almost 7 years old, and Destiny 2, specifically, is almost 4. It was made to satisfy users for a long time, and an aspect to that is its grind. You aren't just given the best weapons in the game, you have to earn them. Though you may get lucky, obtaining a few exotics or good legendaries through more casual runs of the campaign and PvP, it's largely impossible to get the best and most unique items without grinding at least somewhat. Many activities require a particular light level to even participate, and even then, many are extremely difficult when you barely meet those requirements. If you want to walk through enemies without taking a billion damage, you have to work for it. If you want to have the coolest weapon, or the most efficient, you have to work for it. Being an unstoppable god is fun, but it becomes an absolute blast when you struggled with those same enemies in the past. Not only that, but that fun also feels like an achievement. You get to relish that it did, in fact, take quite a few hours to become that strong. I think that without that sense of achievement, playing Destiny would become a very hollow experience. It would be more of a walking massacre simulator than an actual game, and as anyone who plays simulator games can tell you, most get old quite fast. Hence why Destiny's sometimes tedious, brutal grind is worth it. Not only does it increase the longevity of the game, seeing as how players now need to wait longer before being given a payoff, it also makes the game, in a backwards way, more fun. Yes, you have to wade through some muddy waters to get there, but at the end you come upon a beach paradise where all your work is worth it, and that in itself is amazing. Of any aspect that I personally endorse, I would say that Destiny's strongest point is in its designs. Front to back, Bungie did just an excellent job doing their best at creating an exquisite looking game. When you sign into Destiny, take a second just to look at all of the menu screens and loading screens. They look crisp. The menus are nice, clean, and simple. The loading screens are filled with motion and activity, readying you up for what you're about to experience, and that's before you even get to really play anything. What about the actual sandboxes in Destiny? Excellent. Yes, sometimes Bungie doesn't entirely hit the mark of new interesting space biome. I'm looking at you, IO. But for the most part, Destiny is full of interesting and gorgeous locations. If you load into the Tangled Shore and play a Strike, you'll see what I mean. Instantly, when the screen loads, you'll see this crazy mixture of natural rock formations juxtapositioned next to incredibly futuristic looking bases for the Fallen. Many people probably haven't explored this area too extensively, or a lot of areas of the game for that matter, and that's honestly to the detriment of their enjoyment of Destiny. That same zone in the Tangled Shore has coves and offshoots, large towering structures built by an alien race, 2 paths leading to battle-torn areas of the map, and even, in the case of some strikes, literal cities of Scorned and Fallen beneath the ground. Take away the image of the situation, and just as an idea, that still sounds epic. But Destiny doesn't stop at the Tangled Shore. It has a few moderately sized locales, all of which have a similar level of coolness. Play on Nessus and you'll find a beautiful menagerie of odd, overly geometric architecture. Growing on, within, and around these weird formations are these vivid, vibrant red plants that contrast the silver-gray scenery quite nicely. Slowly, as you drive around, you get to see more and more of this planet where technology has slowly started to invade every aspect of biological life, choking it out as the entire entity is transformed into a giant mechanical mess. Maybe instead, you'd rather play on Earth, where an array of colors assaults your eyes as you drive through the forests overrun with Cabal and Fallen. There, you'll drive through the wreckage of humanity's past as you look around and see dozens of abandoned buildings, all of which look like they were built by, well, people. Maybe you'll visit one of Rasputin's bunkers, highly advanced golden age of humanity shelters largely built underground. I haven't even named all of the locations yet, and already they sound not only varied, but interesting. Each place has its own story, and each story has had a ripple effect that created the universe of Destiny as we know it today. On their own, these locations are gorgeous, but coupled with gameplay and backstory, they become exceptional set pieces. It can be very easy to intentionally get lost in Destiny. You could wander around a map for hours, exploring every intricate nook and cranny as you see how they all connect. Or, you could just see them through activities, where you'll get brief doses of some of the most unique and interesting locations in the game. And this same level of attention to detail carries over into the weapons as well. The Dead Man's Tale, the Last Word, the No Time to Explain, the Guillotine, Tiku's Divination. All of these weapons are well designed and beautiful. They're all unique from pretty much every other weapon, and all of them have carefully carved backstories that fit into Destiny's timeline. These definitely aren't the only intriguing weapons in the game, and they aren't necessarily the coolest either. These weapons would be absolute standouts in many popular titles, but in Destiny, they were literally just the ones I had on hand. Yet, even this state of appreciation for the beauty of what Bungie has created is only part of what makes Destiny amazing. The music, the feeling of power, the sense of achievement, the beauty of the game, these are only individual aspects of something much more. It's when these effects combine that Destiny truly evolves. Late at night, take yourself, for a moment, away from the action. Use a minute of your life to absorb the atmosphere created when you play Destiny. Go to one of the planets, get on your Sparrow, and drive around. Look everywhere. Watch the world go by as you listen to the music and relish in all that you and your character have accomplished. Eventually, a sense of calm, quiet, and happy peace will start to overcome you. The beauty around you, the achievement within you, all of it culminated in where you are now, and with a little luck on your side, you can finally have some time to relish in it. As the game slowly enraptures you, as you slip away, you'll be left with a feeling, with some thoughts, and with this. Thank you all for coming to watch this video. If you have any ideas you want to share with me about Destiny, or really anything you enjoy for that matter, leave it in the comments. I'd love to talk with people about the things that they find awesome in their own lives. If you want more video game content and commentary, then you should follow me at PerilousPeriote on Twitter and Instagram, and at Periote on Twitch. See you next time around. Sincerely, William.